Hello again. This is a really good story. It's called There's a Rainbow in the River. It's by Phil Cummings and it's illustrated by Margaret Power. It's a Rigby story. Sit back and listen. Ben ran as fast as he could. His black boots swished through the wet grass. Annie and Tom were close behind. It was Saturday morning and they were on their way to the park. When they reached the gate, Ben shouted, "First one to the river!" And the race began. The river was their favourite place. It was really only a gentle stream, but they liked to call it a river. They spent a lot of time by the river, watching the water jump, splash, and twist its way through the park. They liked the noises it made and the way the river sparkled in the sunlight. Tom said it looked like silver paper, and sometimes it did. There's the river over there. Down the grassy bank and under the huge trees they ran. "I'll beat you all," Ben cried, "and I'll find the first frog." "No, you won't. I will," said Annie, her long hair flapping as she ran. "Oh, that's not fair," yelled Tom, Annie's little brother. "I can't keep up." They were on their way to catch frogs and tadpoles. They had caught them many times before in the river and knew just where to look. They looked in pools hidden away in reeds and rocks and found muddy places where the frogs liked to play. And there we go. I'm thinking that the frogs might be somewhere around here. There they're running towards the river. Annie was the best frog catcher. Ben was good at catching tadpoles, while Tom got very messy helping them both. Whenever they caught something, they'd watch it for a while in a jar or a bucket and then let it go. Sometimes they took tadpoles home and watched them change into frogs before bringing them back to the river. Ben had a wonderful old aquarium that he kept them in. So here's their blue bucket. And they're having a lovely time. Ben was the first one to run under the bridge that crossed the river. This was the best spot. The water was almost still as it trickled over a wall of rocks. There were a lot of reeds, and the water was shaded by the bridge and a huge old tree. When Ben knelt by the river with his bucket and net, he saw something swirling on top of the water. He moved his head from side to side and saw rainbows. "Hey, come here," he called to Annie and Tom. "There's a rainbow in the river." Can you see the rainbow? Annie and Tom looked into the river and saw the faint rainbow shimmering on top of the water. "What is it?" asked Tom. "I don't know," said Ben, "but it's beautiful, isn't it?" "It is," said Annie, putting her hand in the water to scoop up a rainbow. But when Annie took her hand out, it wasn't covered with rainbows. It was speckled with slimy black oil. "Oh, yuck," said Tom. "What's that?" Ben scooped some onto his hand and looked at it closely. "It's oil," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. So it's not rainbows after all. And look at the black mark it's made on his jeans as he wiped his hands. Annie was worried about the frogs and tadpoles. She gently stirred the water with a stick. "This oil will kill the frogs and tadpoles if we don't do something about it," she cried. "We've got to find out where it's coming from." "You're right," Ben quickly. I hope we're not too late. Come on then, said Tom, let's go. So they began walking quickly upstream, staying close to the bank. They climbed over rocks and clung to the roots of trees hundreds of years old. In some places the bank was slippery and they nearly fell in. So they're off to see where they can find out where the oil came from. They hadn't gone far when Ben found some dirty water trickling down a steep bank and into the river. Here it is, he cried, pointing to the top of the bank. It's coming from up there. Let's climb up and see if we can stop it, said Annie. Wait for me, said Tom. The three friends climbed the bank as quickly as they could. When they reached the top, they found themselves at the end of their own street. They saw the water coming through a pipe under the road. Look, said Tom suddenly. Look over there. Annie and Ben looked to where Tom was pointing. Goodness me, that's a lucky find, isn't it? But I don't know if I would be too happy about it. What do you think? They saw Mr. Buckley, one of their neighbours, spraying his driveway with a hose. Mr. Buckley had been fixing his car and his driveway was black with oil. The oil from Mr. Buckley's driveway was gurgling into the drain, flowing under the road and finding its way into the river. Benny, Anne and Tom all cried out together, "Stop, Mr. Buckley, stop!" Oh dear, and you can see there, not very carefully, you can see all the oil, the shimmering oil that Mr. Buckley is hosing down. Mr. Buckley looked up in surprise when he heard them. "What is it?" he asked. "What's wrong?" The three friends ran to tell him. "You're killing the tadpoles," Tom said, puffing. "I'm what?" said Mr. Buckley, frowning. They quickly told Mr. Buckley how his oil was finding its way into the river. Wow, it's a good job they told him, isn't it? Mr. Buckley felt awful. He had caught frogs and tadpoles in the river when he was a boy. It was still one of his favourite places. "Oh dear," he said, running to turning off the hose. "I didn't know. I just wanted to clean my driveway." "We've got to get back to the river and save as many frogs and tadpoles as we can," said Annie. Mr. Buckley ran into his house. "I'll ring the council for help, then I'll come too," he said. So they're going that way and Mr. Buckley's going that way. Hopefully they'll be able to save the tadpoles and frogs. Mr. Buckley wasn't very good. Oops, did I miss a page? No, I haven't. Got to be sure, don't you? Mr. Buckley wasn't very good at catching tadpoles or frogs. He kept falling over like Tom. He was a mess by the time the council arrived to begin the clean-up. Annie, Ben, Tom and Mr. Buckley went to Mr. Buckley's place to check on the tadpoles and frogs they had saved. Mr. Buckley put them in his bathtub, sink, laundry and anywhere he could find. Wow. And there they are in his bathtub. Or was that his laundry? So the next time Annie, Ben and Tom went to the river, Mr. Buckley went with them and so did a crowd of other people who lived in the street. They all had their buckets, tubs and jars full of tadpoles and frogs they had collected from Mr. Buckley's house. And they let them go in a clean river that sparkled in the sunshine like silver paper. And there is the beautiful clean river once again. I'm so glad that they found where the oil was coming from. This is a good reminder to us, isn't it, that we've got to keep our waterways safe. I hope you enjoyed reading that story with me. Until next time, ka kite.